living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
Are your closets, garage, basement, attic, or other rooms in your house bursting at the seams? Maybe you've meant to clean out and declutter your home, but you think you might need some of those things later, or you have trouble letting go of belongings with sentimental value, or you just don't know where to start. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm your host, Beth Brown. Today we talk about how to get your house in order and why you should do it sooner rather than later. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Joining us first thing this morning is Ann Nagel from Organize with Ann, who has 13 years experience helping folks get their houses in order. Ann, thanks for being here with us this morning.
Thank you, Beth.
So why do we hold on to things, even if they're things that we don't use very often or ever for that matter? Why do we hold on to those things?
Well, sometimes it's just a well-grained habit. And people have grown up in households where they don't get rid of anything.
Right.
And they think of it as a waste, if you get rid of something. And also some people keep things because they have a sentimental value and it's hard to get rid of those. Or they're gifts and they were expensive. And I hear that a lot. They can't possibly get rid of it because it costs so much, so they want to keep it. And I love this one. I might need it someday. I hear that so often. And other reasons is because they're just overwhelmed and they don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm. So can having that kind of clutter in your home, could that actually hurt your health or your well-being?
Oh, definitely. You can imagine how stressful it must be, more so for some people than others. And you might have poor eating habits. If your kitchen counters are full of clutter, of course, there's no place to fix food. You might just microwave everything. Mm-hmm. And poor mental health. And of course, my favorite is chaos, creates chaos, can't have anyone over syndrome. And this just means you're afraid to open up the front door to anyone. You live in fear that somebody's going to drop by.
And there are probably other hazards too with dust and mold and those kind of things.
Oh yes, I worked with a hoarder one time who actually had moldy books beside her because they had gotten wet, and she was laying on the bed on oxygen.
Oh gosh.
So yes, dust and dander and everything else, you don't know what's lurking under those piles.
Sure. And then also just tripping hazards, that's something for older folks to be worried about too. So some people might say their possessions, they aren't clutter to them. They're things that they want to hold on to, and they actually contribute to their sense of home. Are they just kidding themselves?
You've heard the old adage, one person's trash is another person's treasure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what's happened here too. So you have to look at how much space you have. If you're living in a 2-bedroom apartment versus a 5-bedroom home with a 3-car garage and a full basement, it's going to make a difference, how cluttered your house looks too. And by the way, I've been in a 5-bedroom house that's very cluttered, so that doesn't even cure it. So some people can't define what clutter means to you or what clutter is to you, and it's about balance. If your house can't handle, or storage can't handle, say, 24 rolls of toilet paper, then buy 6 rolls instead. Mm-hmm. And remember, they call them stores for a reason. They store the stuff so you don't have to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we should probably point out, you mentioned hoarding earlier. Yes. Hoarding is actually different from clutter. Can you talk about the difference there of what hoarding really is?
Hoarding is totally different from clutter. And I've been in homes that are cluttered, and some people will ask me, am I a hoarder? I mean, they're afraid they're becoming a hoarder. Right. And I said, not even close. Because I've been in a few homes and I've seen the pathways. I mean, that's what a hoarder does. They collect, it's an excessive collection of things that they can't use, don't want really, but they feel like they just have to collect these things. One gal had a collection of, it was actually clothes with the tags still on them. Mm-hmm. And so she hadn't worn them. And of course, you just have pathways going through the house. And it gets to the point often where you can't even use your kitchen or your bathroom. And your bed, you have, a little space that you can sleep on the bed because everything else is full of clutter. So it's totally, totally different. It's actually a mental illness. And it's hard to put a number, a small amount of people have it. And it's hard to put a number to it, a percentage. I've heard 2 to 5%, but let's face it, hoarders are not going to tell you that they're hoarders. They hide in their homes, unfortunately. And many people who live with some mess or clutter in their home, well, different people are comfortable with different amounts of clutter.
So to that end then, if clutter is different for different people, how do you know when it's time to do something about it?
Okay, you pretty much know inside that something is wrong here, but there are, I call them red flags, that you can look at. Like, for instance, are you always buying things, duplicate things of things that you already have, but you can't find them? Are you always looking for, it's usually keys and glasses. That's what people lose a lot, but you can't find them. Are you late paying your bills? Now, this is an important one. What I do with people when I go in is I give them a red file folder and a green file folder. The red file folder, because they don't even want to open their mail. There's no place to put it, so they just lay it down. There's no specific home for it. So the red file folder is for action. That's making phone calls, running errands, whatever. Green file folder is for your bills, and that's where you put all your bills. One gal recently had me make another one that was for collections, because she had so many collection agencies after her because she wasn't paying her bills on time because she wasn't opening the bills. So it kind of all goes together. And the other one is you have a catch-all room, a room that you would be embarrassed for anyone else to see. The public areas of the house, this would be like the living room, dining room, kitchen, might look great, just don't look in the kitchen cabinets. But there's that one room, and it's usually the home office, too many papers, or the garage, which you have turned into your own personal landfill while your expensive car sits out on the driveway.
So we're about out of time, but just really quickly, are there times when people should really think it's time to declutter?
Oh, yes. Empty nesters is one. Kids move away. You don't want to take care of the big house, all that stuff. Another one is when you're moving. Declutter before you move.
Okay.
Don't do it after, because you're just moving things that you're going to get rid of anyway. And as you get older, you might want to look at your things and approach it with the attitude of giving things away to your heirs before you die. Then you can see how much they enjoy it and appreciate it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Anne. We are out of time and need to take a quick break, but decluttering can be overwhelming when you don't know where or how to start, and can cause people to give up before they even begin. But we have some tips right after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Sometimes looking at that catch-all room or the piles in the attic is enough to make us want to just close the door and walk away. But there are some easy steps you can take to tackle your clutter. Nikki Swenson joins us and is here to help get us started. Nikki, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So my first question is just that, where do you start?
You know, I think the biggest thing for people to get over the hurdle of is their mindset. It's really about, first of all, just deciding that you want to take the steps to declutter, to maybe part with some belongings you've had for a really long time. And I think that deciding why you want to do it is a big motivator to keep the process going, because it is a lot of work.
Okay, so once you get into that right mindset, then what do you do?
Basically, it's kind of like how they say, how do you eat an elephant? You know, one bite at a time. You kind of just have to start. I really encourage people to start with the space that gives them the most grief. It's not necessarily going to be the garage. It's not necessarily going to be that room that you never go into. It's probably going to be the kitchen counter. That seems to be the landing place for, I know it is at my house, it's the landing place for a lot of things. And to help people just sort through places that they use every day and get systems in those places is, you know, really encouraging for them to want to move on to the rooms that are maybe a little bit more daunting.
Okay, and I would imagine then that at that point the hard part is just deciding, what do I keep, what do I get rid of? So how do you kind of think about those two options?
You know, there's two questions that you really want to ask yourself. One, do I use it? Is it useful? That's kind of all in one question. And then, do I love it? Does it have meaning to you? When you look at it, does it conjure up some memory that you really just want to hold on to? So those are the biggest questions that I encourage people to ask before they make any decisions on how they want to dispose of things.
Okay, perfect. So would you recommend then, if people have more than one area that's cluttered, do they go by room, start in one place, get that taken care of, move on, or what's the process?
So the process that I encourage is typically we have the trash, the keep, the donate, the sell, the gift. Those are probably the 5 options that you have, depending on what your goals are. Some people don't even deal with gifting, and they don't even deal with selling. They literally just keep, donate, trash. But I really encourage people to go in a room and set their bins or their bags at the door and set a timer. And you're in this room until that timer goes off. And basically, if you're in that room and you find something that goes into another room, you're not allowed to leave to take it there. You just set it outside the door and it moves to that room at the time, because we all know that you get in that room and you find something and then you go across the house and you end up in another room and you don't even really remember where you were at or what you were doing. So a timer is very important because it lets you kind of see the end is in sight, for that round of working in that space. So those are probably the quickest, easiest steps you can do to get started in a room.
Great. You mentioned kitchen being sort of the starting place for a lot of folks. What's your tips for getting started in the kitchen then?
There's been a few methods I've used in the kitchen. I don't know if you're like me, you go into a drawer and you see you have like 3 or 4 of the same spoon, and you don't ever use 3 or 4 of the same spoon. So a lot of times what I'll tell people to do in the kitchen, because it is a room that you use so often, is take your things and put them in a box. And for a week, go to that box and to get the things that you need. And as you use them, they go back in the drawer. But if after a week, or maybe even 2 weeks, if you're nervous, you haven't used the items, then you're probably safe to get rid of them.
Okay, how about that catch-all room, the basement or the attic? How do you start in a place like that?
Those rooms, we all know, they're just so stressful. They're so stressful. And really, it's the same thing. If you can go in that room and first of all, sort through as far as what you're not going to keep, that's a quick sort. If you can then go through that room and say, okay, this doesn't really belong in this space. This belongs in the kitchen. This belongs in the office. This belongs in the bathroom. Get things to where they go, and don't really allow for an entire room to be a catch-all. If things have a home, that room won't reclutter itself.
Okay, and what about maybe not a catch-all room, but that catch-all drawer or closet? Right. Same sort of philosophy there?
Yeah, a lot of people have the philosophy of you shouldn't have a junk drawer. I disagree. Okay. I think that it serves a purpose. It's a great place to keep the tape measure, to keep the super glue, to keep the scissors. But I do believe that having a simple drawer organizer where things can be visible rather than things just piling and accumulating in that drawer, I think it's the philosophy of everything has a space, even though maybe things aren't together in that drawer. It's a great place to keep some of those types of items, but some people have 3 and 4 of those. I would not encourage that.
Okay. How about the garage? That's not exactly a room, but sort of a different space with the sort of things that you keep in a garage. How about getting started in there?
The garage, the biggest thing that you can do if you have the time and the space is on a nice day, clean it out. Take things out, and if you can't clean out the whole space, maybe clean out one side of it, or move things to one side and decide what's going to go on that wall, for example, and sort those things back, keeping maybe sporting equipment together, hobby equipment together, auto equipment together, seasonal decor, those types of things. But really, the garage, it's really great if you can empty it and then put it back and sort through what you're going to get rid of as you put it back.
Okay, great advice. We do need to pause here and take a quick break. But coming up next, you've sorted your things into bags to keep, sell, donate, gift, or throw away. Now what? And how do you keep yourself organized after you declutter? We'll have the answers to those questions and more tips for you right after this. Don't go away. We're talking about getting rid of clutter, both for your own physical health and peace of mind, but also for the peace of mind of your children, so you don't leave a burden of big messes behind. We're going to continue our conversation with Nikki Swenson. Thanks for staying with us, Nikki.
Yeah.
So we talked about briefly those 5 categories. Could we kind of walk through some of those? Maybe let's just start with toss. What kind of things do you put into the toss pile?
You know, I think toss is maybe the easier category, because if things are broken, if things are worn out, clothing for example, things like that are easy to throw away. There are some items that you definitely want to make sure you recycle. You don't, plastics, some metals can be recycled, cardboard, papers, say for example, gift cards, things like that you don't really think that can be recycled. They're simply paper. They can go into recycle bins. So whenever you are tossing, you want to be conscientious about what can be recycled so that you're having as little impact on the environment as possible, for sure.
That is a great point. So don't just take everything to the dump necessarily.
Right. Correct.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, how about those folks that maybe have some things that they could sell and make a little money off of? Advice for how to go about selling things? Garage sale or?
Garage sale is an option. Garage sales are hard because a lot of times, depending on when you're doing your clean out, you might have to store the items till the weather is nice enough, especially in Montana, to have your garage sale. The other thing about garage sale is they are a lot of work, and you're not probably going to ever get a lot of money for small items at garage sales, so you have to be okay with that. There are options to sell things, Craigslist, eBay, places like that. If it's something that's large enough, valuable enough, you can even, use, like in Montana, like say the mini nickel, like things like that. Facebook even has online marketplaces that are really user-friendly, that it's a great place to sell things, and if you're intimidated by that, I guarantee you there's someone in your family that can help you out with that, for sure.
Okay, great. And you said one too might be gift. Any tips for those belongings that you might want to give to family, friends?
Right. Gifting can be great. I have some possessions that were given to me by my grandparents, and they're some of my treasures that I would never get rid of. Gifting can be done in a lot of ways. It can be done with a will. If you want to do it and have it taken care of after the fact, that's one way to handle it. Another great way to handle it is to simply give it while you can, pass on the stories that are with it and give it to your family that way. Another way is if family members have things that they want, maybe put that in writing or put labels on the items, prior to needing to dispose of it.
Okay, so kind of letting them come in and claim those things that mean something to
absolutely.
them. Okay, perfect. And then one of the other ones too is keep. So if you keep those items, you don't want them to just go back to cluttering your home again. So how do you organize those things that you decided to keep?
It's really important, again, to ask those same questions. Is it useful, and does it mean something to me? And if it does, then you want to make sure you have the space for it and to give it its rightful place. If it doesn't have its rightful place that you can return it to after you're done using it, then the clutter has a tendency to happen again. So that keeping portion is really, it's really a key to the maintaining the decluttering. You don't want to keep too much, but at the same time, if it means something to you, you don't necessarily want to dispose of it either.
Okay, and so what do you do with those things? I know you mentioned you take some of the stuff out of the room, but you don't put it in the room that it goes to. At what point do you go about that process? When you're on an individual room sort, you can basically take those things to that next room. And you might not start on that room that day necessarily, but you're going to take all of the things out of there that do not belong in the room you're working on, and then basically you're going to turn around and put things in their place in the room you were just cleaning. And don't let anything back in that space until you have the items that were in their rightful places in that room, because once the space is
filled up, you really don't want to pack more stuff in there. And if there is more stuff that belongs in there, then maybe you have some more decisions to make.
Okay, and then I think the only one we haven't talked about yet is donate. What are the options there for some of the things that you can donate?
You know, there's lots of options for donating, depending on your community. You know, there's Salvation Army, there's Goodwill. I know, like, shelters will take things like blankets, pillows, towels, those types of things. But there's always a way to donate something that can either serve someone who needs it more than you and can keep them from going into the landfill.
Okay, perfect. Something that a lot of folks have that I am curious to know what your thought is are those storage units. Sometimes they just throw things in there and they keep them, they're just throwing money at them. Any advice on how to tackle those storage units people have paid for?
Right. Storage units are extremely overwhelming, and a lot of people will get into a situation where they maybe have to clean out a home or something, and really a storage unit is their only resort as to where to put that stuff until they have time to deal with it. I would never recommend tackling a storage unit alone. And you need to understand that it is going to be an overwhelming process. I would definitely have means in place to be able to dispose of some things or to be able to haul them off right then and there, like maybe show up with a pickup, that type of thing, because you don't really want to ever put it back in if it's come back out. You want it to either be given to someone, donated somewhere. If it's something you can use at home that you have space for, you can take it home. And the other great thing about storage units is a lot of them will have like an annual like storage unit, like garage sale type thing, where you can go and open your door, set up your stuff, and sell it right from the storage unit, which is a great option too.
Okay, perfect. We are so close to being out of time, but just a final thought that you would give to folks when it comes to decluttering.
You know, I think the biggest thing is, if you feel like your stuff is weighing on you, it is very true. If you are overwhelmed by your stuff, that's a true feeling, and it really does a great thing for your health to be able to live in a clean, decluttered environment.
Perfect. Nikki, thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you.
Advice, great information. That's all the time we have for today, so I'd like to thank both of our guests for coming and sharing their expertise, and thank you for joining us this week. We hope you'll come back again next week. Until then, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life. Have a great week.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health in partnership with AARP Montana. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.